Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Elkins City Council. In place of an invocation tonight, I just wanted to take a moment and wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day. Well, if it's your mother or a mother that you know, or there's women that serve in the role of mother, even if they don't have their own children. I think it's an important thing to celebrate. So if you'll rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Call this meeting of the Elkins Common Council to order, and I'll ask our Executive Secretary to call roll.
Councillor Bros Freganera. Absent. Councillor Chenoweth.
Here.
Councillor Kwanzo.
Present.
Councillor Friddle.
Here.
Councillor Guy.
Present.
Councillor Higgins.
Here.
Councillor Hinchman.
Here.
Councillor Lowther. Absent. Councillor Parker.
Here.
Councillor Vest.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving down to agenda adjustments, you'll notice a few on your agenda that we'll get to later this evening. Is there anyone here for public comment? Mr. Cutlip.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Cutlip. I own the property at 220 Boundary, but I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Elkins Main Street, and we just want to express our support for your proposed resolution 1520, the advertising of an RFQ for professional services for downtown streetscape. I think as you'll recall, back in 2017, we prepared the Elkins Streetscape Vision document and presented it to the city first, or the community, and then ultimately to the city, and you adopted it. Along the way, if you recall, we've always said this isn't a conceptual plan. It was a visioning document. It outlined principles of streetscape, why it was important, sorts of things you could do, along with some short-term and long-term recommendations. Over the past 4 years, collaborating with the city, with the tree board and others, I think we've accomplished a number of things. There's some new street furnishings downtown. We've embarked on the 3-hour parking plan with the street pavement markings and removal of meter posts. The tree board has embarked on a new tree planting program where they plant trees at grades with tree grates now as opposed to the old boxes. So a number of things that were presented in this document have been accomplished. But frankly, we've picked the easy fruit. The low-hanging fruit's been taken. It's now time to really embark on one of the recommendations we made at the end of the document, which is to retain professional engineering services to develop a conceptual and then final engineering plans for downtown streetscape. I think if you look at the parking lot, that's a testament to why it's important to do that. I think the parking lot, I assume you're all very happy with your final product. That wouldn't have happened if you hadn't retained professional services to guide both the design as well as the construction. So I think if you think along those terms, looking forward then to the downtown streetscape, you could see similar results with plans for sidewalk improvements, planned decorative lighting downtown that provides both a safe as well as welcoming atmosphere, maybe some traffic calming improvements that enhance pedestrian safety. So I just hope when you take this matter up tonight, you'll give serious consideration to going ahead and advertising for the RFQ. That certainly doesn't bind you into a contract, but it will give you certainly a better sense of what the engineers and architects can provide for you, what the cost would be for their service, as well as future costs for construction. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, we'll close public comment. Next are the minutes proposed for the regular council meeting of April 19th, 2022.
So moved.
Motion to approve. Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. In your packets, you should have received the issued building permits, a treasurer's report. Do you have one event in there, and then minutes of the committee, boards, and commission meetings? And then I will welcome Stacy Thomas and Ann Beardsley up to give our first presentation this evening regarding Randolph Ready Hubcap.
So thank you for the opportunity for Ann and I to speak with you guys tonight. As Jessica said, I'm Stacy Thomas with the West Virginia Community Development Hub. I'm a community coaching coordinator at the Hub, and I've been working with the Elkins team for almost 2 years on our Hubcap program. So I'm going to tell you just a couple things about the Hub, then talk about Hubcap, and then a specific the next program we're working on. So if you're not familiar with the Hub, we are a statewide organization. We've been operating for 12 years, and we have worked in over 61 communities throughout West Virginia. We typically work programmatically in communities, like we're doing here in Elkins with our Hubcap program, and we have kind of 4 pillars in the way we work in communities. So we invest in community leadership and support community identified projects. We build community partnerships across different groups working in community development in the state. We tackle system level changes in communities through creative engagement, and we drive forward a news story in West Virginia with detailing positive change and a narrative shift. As I said, we've worked in over 61 communities since our inception. Many of those communities we've worked in for years. I'm from Richwood, and the Hub has been working in my community for over 10 years. So we always say once we're in a community, we don't ever really quite leave unless you just don't need us anymore. So we'll be around, for quite a while. So we have been working with Hubcap in Elkins since about this time 2 years ago. We started really right when the pandemic started. So Hubcap is our Communities of Achievement program, and it is our highest capacity program at this time. We selected Elkins to be one of the communities that we worked in because of the Mon Forest Town partnership. We're working in 5 other Mon Forest Town communities in this round of Hubcap. And so seeing the synergy in the communities with the Mon Forest Town initiative, we thought it would be really helpful to build some collaboration, and we've specifically worked on recreation development projects in this round of Hubcap. And one of the things that I've witnessed as the coach, so I'm in Elkins at least once a month with, meeting with the people at our regular meeting, and then typically when I'm here, I also, meet with some of the people individually throughout the day. And one of the things I've noticed over the last 22 months or so is the growth in partnerships and collaboration between the different groups, and we've continued to have new people coming to our Hubcap meeting. Just a couple months ago, we had 2 new people come to our meeting. So that's always great to see when people continue to feel invested and involved in the Hubcap process and, whatever the community's doing. And I think that's a testament to the people that are part of the Hubcap team. I don't want to list them because I would forget one, and they've all made such great contributions that it would be a shame for me to leave someone out. But they're a dedicated group that, shows up. They've hosted some great events. I'm going to let Ann speak a little bit more specifically about what has happened, with the group. But they've really completed a lot in a difficult time. I think all of us would acknowledge that the last 2 years probably aren't the best 2 years to try to be building community engagement and partnerships at a local level. But these folks have been able to do that and continue to move forward. So I'm going to give Ann an opportunity to speak about what the Hubcap group has done, and then briefly welcome questions. And I want to talk to you about what we're transitioning to with the next program that Elkins is a part of. This is kind of a first for us to transition communities from one program directly into another, but I'm really excited to be able to continue working here in Elkins.
I'm just going to give you a quick overview of a few things that we've been doing since we started. 24 months ago, when I was asked to be in charge of the leadership committee for the Elkins Hubcap, I was very grateful for the opportunity and immediately said yes. We had a community with wonderful ideas for projects, but we seemed to need a reason to collaborate and to merge together and actually make things happen. And I felt that this was the perfect vehicle for making things happen in Elkins. The fact that, and I know Tracy said she wouldn't mention people, I'm not going to mention people, but the fact that the Chamber of Commerce, Elkins Main Street, City Hall, the Development Authority, the CVB, Davis Health System, the Housing Authority, Woodlands Development Group, Appalachian Forest National Heritage Area, Davis and Elkins College, and a variety of individuals all stepped up to be a part of the leadership team and have been present throughout these 2 years. It proved that we're on the right track and that the people were anxious to have some kind of collaboration happening within the community. We looked at a lot of projects. We had several pages of things, and we started to look at things and decide what other organizations could easily handle, where people had already started to take off on a project, and we picked projects that seemed to be a little bit more long-term and a little bit more difficult to get your hands around. The first, and I want to say that Hubcap was fabulous with giving us money for technical support, and that's part of what allowed us to do these things. We did a branding program. I think most of you have seen the branding that's taken place for Elkins. Great color combinations that included things from the city, from the Development Authority, different organizations throughout the community, really fun icons and symbols that we're using, and those things are going to be distributed throughout the area, but also we're finding many other people in the county are using those colors, those fonts, and trying to get on board with the same color combinations. So that was a major project. Riverfront Development. All of you are familiar with that because Jessica has been chairing that committee at this point, and I am amazed at how far that committee has come in about 18 months or less. Yes, they're working with GAI, as most of you know, and they have really moved forward. I was able to go to the event where we got to take a look as a stakeholder at the progress, and I was amazed at how far things have moved. We realize this is not going to be a project that's over next year or the year after that. It's a long-term project, and Hubcap will be there if we need them, and we'll continue working on that. The other major thing that we did this year was the expo. I know many of you were at the E3 Expo for entrepreneurials that were looking to start a business or to grow business, and that was a huge success. We're already planning for next year's event, and it will be the second annual. We're also carrying the theme of why here, why now, through this entire year. And we will be doing some other events that will be involving the community about why did you come here, why did you do it when you did it, so that people get a little bit more of an idea. As a Montown and Hubcap community, we'll be transitioning to the DARE program, which Stacey's going to be talking about. And I think it's a program that's really exciting for this area. Not all people that are involved with Hubcap will be moving on to this project. It's not, some people have more interest in a program like this than others. But we're really excited that the Hub has decided to keep us on their list of major cities or towns that they're going to be working with in the future. So I'm going to turn it back over to Stacey.
Yeah, and the sticker that I gave you guys was part of the branding work that Ann talked about that Councilman Higgins' wife was involved in creating with her job in Main Street along with the rest of the team. So before I transition to DARE, I just wanted to see if anyone had any specific questions about Hubcap, because since there are two different programs, and then I'll talk briefly about the DARE program that Elkins is moving into.
Hubcap will wind down in September,
Yeah.
but as Stacey always says, once they're here, they never leave us. And so even though we may not meet on a regular basis, we will still have access to
Yeah.
the Hub.
And we will talk
continue
about-
working on these projects.
Yeah, we'll talk, in the coming months at Hubcap, we're gonna be talking about the sustainability plans for the group to continue to meet. I'm sure you guys are familiar with your neighbor Buchanan, who's been involved in the Hub. They were one of our first Hubcap communities. They still have Create Buchanan that started in their Hubcap group and is a weekly lunch meeting that they hold. And so, you know, we always encourage our communities to find what works for you. That doesn't work for everybody, but, you know, that'll be kind of the discussion we have over the next couple months with the leadership team that we have. But now I'll give you guys a chance to ask any questions. Nope, that means I've done a really good job explaining the program. So I'm going to talk briefly about the DARE program. So it's Downtown Appalachia Revitalizing Recreational Economies. We love an acronym at the Hub, the nonprofit world. We love it when we can, put together a word like that. So we officially kicked off this program earlier this week with Senator Manchin, Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Federal ARC Co-Chair Gail Manchin. This is a federally funded program through the Appalachian Regional Commission with a power grant, and we'll be operating this in 8 Mon Forest Town communities. So again, we're making investment in the Mon Forest Town. We're adding Richwood and Parsons to the hubcap communities we've already been working on. So this is a completely new program. It's a pilot program that we submitted. We have some core partners, WVU Brownfield Center, Woodlands, who you guys are familiar with, Partner Capital, which is formerly Natural Capital Investment Fund, and then WVU and some other smaller partners. But this is really a program that's aimed at business and building development. So we're working with business coaches from Woodlands, the Women's Business Center, the Small Business Development Authority, and the West Virginia Hive to provide entrepreneurship training, similar to what happened at the Expo, and make those connections. But at the core of this program is technical assistance for building development. So just to give an example of a building I am kind of familiar with in Elkins, because some WVU students worked with it last year, the Wilt building. I don't know the ownership structure of that building, but I know we had some WVU students do some interior design work. I think Jessica, you were part of that group, and Ann, and they provided some renderings for what that building could look like. And those were, free. We were working with the students. But what could happen through this program is the building owner, because these can be privately owned buildings as well as publicly owned, will submit an application for different types of technical assistance services. It could be architectural and engineering to determine the structure of a building and how much work needs to happen to it. It could be design work. If it's a historic building, it might be to work with an accountant or a lawyer for the historic tax credits, which are 40% to renovate a historic building. Maybe someone has an idea for a building and they have apartments up top and retail space on the bottom, and they need a cash flow analysis to see if their investment's going to make sense. We can do all that through this program at no cost to the building owner. So the process is someone, if they have a building or a project, they talk to me, and I'll also talk with Ray Moeller, our key partner at Brownfields. And if it meets the basic criteria, we'll send the applicant an application. It's a brief application. They'll turn that back in. It goes to a scoring committee. I won't be involved in those decisions. And if it's selected, then we will work with the building owner to select a technical assistance partner. It could be someone in your community. We have an RFQ process out right now, and we have received bids from some engineers, architects, interior design, lawyers, accountants. So we still need those. So if you know someone, tell them to fill out our RFQ, but we'll match the building owner with that person. We'll pay directly for the technical assistance. And then hopefully that this is meant to be to help building owners overcome the obstacle or a hurdle in starting a new business or renovating a building. So and these are just for downtown. So we're not going to be out on the pike. We're going to be in your all's key downtown district and looking at what can happen. This can also be expansion for existing businesses or buildings. So maybe you have a building, but the current concept in it isn't working and you need to shift. COVID made us realize that lots of shifts need to happen. Maybe it's for expansion. So we have a lot of flexibility in what we can do, but this program, like our hubcap program, has a specific team. This program, we really need to rely on everyone in the community to help spread the word about this program, and you guys are a key part of that, because when people have ideas, they're going to come to the city, to their council person, and kind of talk about what's going on. So you guys can help spread the word so we can utilize this pool of funds that we got, to make an impact in your community. We're really excited about this. This is a 2.5-year program. We'll wrap this program up in 2024. So, we will be working in Elkins for the next several years on this program. It won't be quite monthly like we have with Hubcap, but I'll be here as often as needed to have meetings with people. Obviously, we will have a team that is going to help kind of spearhead and make these connections. Lisa and whoever the new Main Street director is, Mark Doak, they've all been key in this, and we'll continue to work with them and anyone else who, has this connection. But we really need you guys to help spread the word about this program, because it's not often people want to give free money to renovate a building or, make something work in your downtown. So we're really excited about this opportunity. So you guys have a little bit more information there. I probably should have included our website on there, but it's pretty easy. It's wvhub.org. It's the end part of my email there, so you'll see my email at the bottom. So it's just that. You can also reach out to me by email or, with a phone call if you need more information or you think there's someone that that might be interested. So, and I'll just say this, I certainly am here in the capacity of a coach, but I have a vested interest in Elkins. I just packed up my daughter earlier today. She's a freshman at D&E, so at least for the next few years, I'm making regular trips to Elkins, not just to be part of the great team that we have established here, but because it's, my daughter loves it here. And if I could convince Chris Wood that those elevators, those dorms need some elevators, it'd be a lot better. But do you guys have any questions about the DARE program?
Can municipalities also participate? So if the city owns a building?
Yeah, if it's a public-owned building or even a nonprofit, yeah, you can certainly participate. There's also another program that Region 4 is operating, and I know you guys are in Region 8? 7, okay. But Region 4 got a grant to operate in the Monforstown, and they're gonna be doing one public facilities project in each community with the USDA Public Facilities Grant. So depending on what that looked like, we may say it's a better fit for that because they have such a narrow scope and ours is more broad, but if there's multiple projects, we can certainly do that. I should have mentioned too that we can do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments with this as well, because that's often a key piece when we're dealing with historic buildings. And we have, other partners. Part of it too is there's a pool of loan funds. So if we have your building assessed and, the engineer determines it's gonna be $400,000 to, do whatever you need to do with your building, we can try to, through the business coach, work with you. If your project's bankable, to select a local bank to work with. If not, connecting with Woodlands business coaches or one of the others, they all have pool of funds that they can provide loans, and there is some forgivable equity matches and this for larger projects as well. So this is really a comprehensive program. We've never seen a program like this in West Virginia, so it's really exciting, and we hope to make a huge impact on these downtowns.
Yeah, it's huge. Thank you. Gosh, that's great.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to say that all sounds super cool, and I'm glad you guys are here personally.
Great. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you. You can certainly reach out to me by email. I hope you guys will forgive me. I do have a long drive back to Richwood, and I'm a little tired after our meeting today and packing some dorm rooms and everything, so I'm going to skip out a little early, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Don't hesitate to reach out should you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Okay. Our next presenter is Larry Riggleman. He'll be talking about the Elkins landfill leachate treatment project. You do have a flyer that was included in your packet, and there may have been one at your seat as well that relates to this presentation and to the resolution that appears later on the agenda.
Hello, my name's Larry Riggleman. I'm an engineer with the West Virginia DEP.
Mr. Riggleman, do you mind just to pull, can you pull that up just a little bit?
Closer?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my name's Larry Riggleman. I'm an engineer with West Virginia DEP. One of the tasks, or one of my responsibilities is with the LCAP program is the water treatment and finding ways to reduce costs. I'm not sure, probably most of the councilmen know at one time Elkins had a operating landfill. Actually went under permit somewhere around 1994. Operated for about 10 to 15 years. Actually, Jerry and I worked on the landfill committee for quite some time together back in the mid-2000s. Economically, the landfill wasn't a viable operation for the city, and the city decided to get out of the landfill business. As part of that, their permitting process required them to do a landfill closure program, okay? The funds wasn't there with the city, and through a legislative ruling, the city of Elkins was allowed to enter into the landfill closure assistance program. The only way you can get into that program is through an act of a legislature. Right now, there's about 30 landfills that's in that program. Around 20 to 23 of those have leachate issues. The other 7 or 8 are, I would say, very minimal, if any, leachate's generated. So I wasn't really sure how many of you folks had actually saw or visited the landfill. About 2 years ago, the project was bid out to do the landfill closure. And if you look at the video, and if anybody, if you haven't been there, if you're going on Old Route 33, you're about 2 miles north of Norton, okay? That's where the exit is, or the entrance is, on the east side. So Monday, I had one of my engineers fly this. So I'm gonna stop right here, okay? So if you look at this, the area right below you and kind of immediately to the right is some of the older landfill. And what I mean by that is that portion of the landfill has no underneath liner in it. That was some of the what I would consider pre-roll or pre-permit stage, all right? And if you look immediately to your left, you see a building and some telephone poles. Just to the bottom of the screen, there was actually some garbage in that location as well. There was such a minimal amount, it made more sense instead of trying to line and cover that area, that was actually moved over into the existing cell. It would save DEP some money and made a much better environmental impact, less environmental impact, okay? So as we're moving on up, now if you look at, it's a road as it bisects the picture, the area to the right and below the road, that is the area that was actually all lined. And when I say all lined, I'm talking about the underneath of the garbage and over and above the garbage. So basically what you have is a huge garbage bag. In essence, right now, it's sealed. The area to the left is old garbage, and everything that sits to the left of that road after it makes a right-hand 90-degree, all of that is unlined on the underneath side of the garbage, okay? So I'm going to stop it right here. So as you see, the areas that are really green to the left and, well, actually to the bottom of the road, where that road is actually going, bisecting the picture left to right, that's where the garbage ends, okay? Everything below that portion, there isn't any garbage. Everything above that area has been lined. And that's actually looking back over to the section I told you earlier that has no underneath lining. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. So and I'm going to talk to you a little bit in a few moments about leachate treatment. But if you look at this area here, this oblong area, and it looks like it's kind of a depression, that's the area we're talking about possibly doing leachate treatment. If you look to your right, right at the edge of the screen, you'll see a lift station there. The reason there's a lift station there is that garbage was so deep, all right, that it made more sense to put a lift station in to get down low enough to catch the leachate from that water, or leachate from the ground that's coming out of the garbage, and then flow it by pumps to the leachate pond, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So this landfill, as of many other landfills, it was designed on old strip mine sites or coal mine sites with pits. And the problem with that is you have water wanting to move in and out depending on how the coal had laid in those. So a common term in the mining industry is down dip, which means the slope of the coal lays at an angle. So knowing that and the way the coal lays here, it's very possible that you see water moving into the garbage. And it's almost impossible without spending a lot of money to stop that. We've actually looked at different ways to try to make that happen, and it's just not economically feasible. So now all the leachate that's gathered is flowing down, and I'll just stop here real quick for the police department. Right, everybody asked about the shooting ranges. So right here's the shooting range for the police department, which it really, I think, it really works out good for that location. It's out of the way. And it don't interfere with us, and I don't think, hopefully we're not interfering with what they're doing. Okay, so right here is the leachate pond. So all the leachate that's generated by that landfill is either flowing by gravity from the section that was originally lined, or from the old section, which actually has a pump station. It all ends up here in this pond. This pond, since it was built, has been a contention for the DEP, and I'm talking about the regulatory section. I'm not in the regulatory section, and I can't explain why, but that pond was built with one liner, and the regs call for 2 liners. So when the permitting process to cover this landfill, the one stipulation was that would have a dual liner. That was part of the agreement. However, we was able to negotiate in that agreement to say we want to treat water on site. And if we can close the landfill, or cap the landfill and see how much water reduction we have, or leachate reduction and flow we have, then that would make a determination of how much capacity we may or may not need in that pond. So therefore, if we had to put a second liner in it, we may not have to put as much liner in it, therefore reducing the cost, okay? And this is pretty much the end of the video. It was real windy that day. One other thing I wanted to be able to show, and we was not able to show in this video, was where the river lays in conjunction to that, because that's going to be more important when I get ready to talk to you about treatment. Josh and Melody, we took a tour of the landfill, and this was one of the things Josh asked me about, and I think he's got a valid point that the city probably should look at, is the liability there. We've got a large leachate pond. You've also got a large pond, stormwater pond, and also we've got a pond that actually has some fish in it over again at the far high wall. There's no safety measures. There's no way to keep people safer, I guess what I'm saying. So that could potentially, as Josh was asking me and talking to me about, could be a liability for the city. But that's something else to discuss later with the city. So this gets down to what I was wanting to talk to you about, was leachate treatment. So I said earlier that the LCAP, we have about 20 to 23 sites that produce leachate. As you can imagine, it's a major financial burden to the LCAP program. LCAP is not a fund that has tremendous funds. As a matter of fact, it's taken off of fees, or a tax off of every ton of garbage that goes into a landfill throughout the state. Because of that, I'm daunted with the task, plus with my boss, to find different ways to try to save and conserve as much money. And I don't know if people are aware of how much leachate this landfill has previously produced or how much it produces now. Fortunately, back in the 90s, I actually worked for the city at the wastewater plant. I know how much the landfill produced. It produced a lot of water in the neighborhood of some days. They could truck as much as 40 or 50,000 gallons a day just to keep up. There was times they couldn't keep up. now with the cap, and I talked to Donnie Hedrick, who's been hauling for Ted Ogden, it seemed like he's telling me that it looks like most of the time he can do about average 2 loads a day, which is equivalent to about 12,000 gallons of water, okay? So, and look at that number, what we want to do. Let me step back. The leachate back in the 90s was really nasty stuff. When you go down there now and you look at that leachate, it's, there's no odor, there's no color to it. Back in the day, it had a very foul smell. It was very strong, it had a lot of ammonia, it had organics and things of that nature. As a tendency with landfills, over time, those constituents tend to leach out of the water and the water quality gets better. Sometimes the water quality is so good it's almost, you're almost to the point you can put it back in the stream with very, very little treatment. Right now, I've already taken samples. I have not got the results back to determine what kind of constituents is in that leachate at this present time. What we want to do is look at the constituents that's in that water and look at what kind of permit limits would be in the stream down at the Tigris Valley River, which is approximately about 3/8 to a half a mile from this leachate pond. So the idea would be we would treat it on site and send it to the river, provided that we could have a treatment system that would meet compliance at the stream. So the question I think everybody asks, other than let me show you what the landfill looks like right now, is why is a DEP coming on to talk to you about this tonight. Whenever the landfill went into the landfill closure program, the workings of the landfill came with that. The permit didn't. The permit still is in the city of Elkins' hands. So if there's a modification or any language that needs to be changed in that permit, the city of Elkins has to be the one that initiates that and signs the documentation to allow that to happen, okay? Now, because of that, I think everybody's got a handout, I hope, right? So this handout is an outline or a proposal of what we would like to do. So as you can see right now, the step one was to actually do sampling, which I'm in the process of doing. Step two is to fill out what's called a waste load allocation. That's a first part of seeing what kind of limits that we would have to meet in the stream. There's actually a second part that we'd have to look at, which is calculated by the DEP, which would determine what kind of metals loadings would be allowed into the stream. All right, once we have both that information, what we can put into the stream and the water quality coming out of the landfill and the water that's in the leachate, then what we would do, we'd evaluate the samples, the stream requirements, and determine if we can put some type of treatment system in where we can meet compliance in the stream. All right, so if we do that, the first step that the state says that we have to do, and we should do, and when I say the state, the DEP's water and waste folks, the ones that set the standards for those permits, they would like to see us do a pilot study. All right, so what the pilot study, and I probably ought to start with this. The things I'm talking about doing are items that's funded by LCAPs, not funded by the city of Elkins. The only thing the city would have to do would be sign the paperwork to allow us to get the permit modification to do these. But what we'd want to do is a pilot project to determine yes or no, can we actually meet those limits? And what it would be, it'd be a scaled down size, but it would be built and designed in such a way that even that pilot would be incorporated to the final treatment plant. Some other issues that would be a part of this, it would actually have to be a right-of-way that would be attained to get the water from the treatment site down to the river. Here again, the DEP or the LCAP program, we would be the ones responsible for requiring that. Although realize that once we would obtain that would actually be the city of Elkins right-of-way, because you still own the landfill, and there's potential. I don't know what can happen 5 years, 10 years down the road with the LCAP program, but if something potentially could happen to the landfill could come back to the city. Okay, I just want to be aware of that, and I mentioned that to the mayor earlier. There's nothing in the works for that to happen, but I'm just saying you need to be conscious that that could happen. All right, so the first thing I would need and we would draw up would be a memorandum of understanding between DEP and LCAP, which would say, yes, we'll allow you to do the pilot study. And we would take that memorandum, take it to Water and Waste, and with that, they would allow us to do the pilot study on site. Okay, so two things, right-of-ways, memorandum of understanding. So once that is completed, we would have to do the study for approximately 1 year on the water. After that 1 year, we'd be able to make a determination of yes or no, whether we could meet those permit requirements that's going to be set in the stream. Hopefully the answer is yes. And at that point in time, we would look at the city once again to do a permit modification. This time, the permit modification would be to design the treatment system at the landfill. And basically, after that would happen, my hope is that we'd be doing this passively type treatment. Would be no chemicals. Preferably, we would probably do a surface wetland in conjunction with a subsurface wetland. I think the water quality is going to be just what we're seeing, at least initially. That was what we would project, and that's what we'd like to do. And the reason is, if we can do something like that, it's limited cost to the state. If the city would ever get the landfill back, then it's a limited cost to them. You're not having to worry about operation, maintenance, and all those other things that come like with a conventional plant, like your water plant or your wastewater plant. And I'm sure you're aware, and I know you're aware of what kind of costs you can see there. So if everybody's in agreement, city'd be willing to sign the memorandum, and also once we did the memorandum of understanding to do the pilot, I think we're probably in somewhere in the neighborhood of about a 2 to 4 year process, depending on how things would work out. I think the pilot would probably get that designed this year. I'm really wanting to push to get that design done this year so we can actually get the construction either in the fall or sometime in the spring. The sooner the better, okay? I probably missed something. I know I talk fast and I apologize for that. Sometimes I have more things to say and I get a little bit confused, but does anybody have any questions? I mean,
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Just for my understanding, the leachate, that is just contaminated groundwater flowing out of what used to be the landfill, is that correct?
that's correct. So you actually have two sources, okay? You have one source that's actually from the complete contained cell, which you've got a liner on the bottom and the top. If the whole landfill was that way, we probably wouldn't have near the leachate issue to deal with. The other section's unlined. You also, I think we've got some groundwater that infiltrates into the garbage, plus you've got the water that's in the garbage. They completed that lining late last fall, and as you can see, I mean, the grass really took pretty well. He hit the season just right. Now you will see, as you can look up through there, you can see some bare spots, and that's on the punch list. Don't worry, they're going to actually come back and reseed that and probably refertilize that, and they're required to do that.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I guess my other question would be too, with it potentially flowing into the river, and I understand it would be treated. Is there ongoing testing with that to see, what might be in the water as well? Is that
We would have, we'd have long-term, you're talking about on the treated leachate?
right? So if this comes to fruition, right, and we are treating it, and then actually we gain the easements to put it into the river, there's continual testing. Is that correct?
Yeah, typically, they would consider landfill an industrial facility. Normally, I don't think it would change here, but you'd be on a monthly schedule for sampling.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Is there ever a time when the unlined garbage areas that are not producing leachate, or is that just something that will happen forever?
I think it's going to happen forever, but historically what we've saw is as time goes on, the material in that garbage, it eventually just completely leaches out. The thing I see with landfills where there is coal mines adjacent, you still may have a problem with some iron it's actually leaching out of the coal mine through the garbage and into your leachate. And honestly, you see a little bit of that down here at the site as well. Especially, if any of you want to go down a tour, I'm more than happy to take you and walk through anytime, just let me know. But if you actually look at the area where we was looking about building the facility, the possible treatment site, you can actually see some of that mine water, actually they're leaching out some iron.
Can you give us some idea what kind of cost to the city will be associated with this?
The city's cost?
Yes,
Nothing.
thank you.
Yeah. So understand, so once the LCAP program took this over, they are, I don't know, lack of a better word, they're on the hook to take care of this as long as that LCAP program is in existence. So all of this is to, for one, help us reduce cost, okay? And then two, if it would ever come back to the city, then we want to make sure the liability or the financial burden to the city is minimal as possible. So again, I go back to this, our fund, this fund does not, we don't take in a lot of money, so every dollar that we can save, it's very, very important that we do that. Some other things with this, just so you're aware, we actually spent money on this as part of, as a monitoring system, so we can determine how much leachate is actually going into that pond, all right, on a real-time basis. And actually, in any time the trucks come in or out, we've actually have a meter and a pump that will actually fill the truck up, so we can record how many gallons is coming out of the pond as well. And actually, I was able to show Josh and Melody that while we was down there, the screens and stuff, and how that works. You're welcome.
I do have another question. You just reminded me there. What are we currently doing with it? And we're pumping it into trucks, and then where does it go?
It's going to your wastewater plant.
Gotcha. And then we treat it and,
You treat it, and it's being discharged into the river.
gotcha.
Is there any other problems with, like, when it freezes up, then it thaws? Does that cause any problems?
With the leachate,
Yeah.
I've seen the pond, I've been down there when I've seen the pond be froze over, and, but if we do the treatment system, no. I mean, typically that water's coming out, it's gonna be somewhere in the, between 50, 55 degrees. You really don't see freezing. Now, you may, on wetlands, typically you may see, we'd have a mechanism, I guess is a good way to say that, to where you could raise and lower the water in that wetland. So think about a wetland. There's two things a wetland really does. If you have a surface wetland, it's almost acting as a filter. So as solids is going through, they're going to catch on to the different leaves and the plants and so forth. So that's one way a wetland will work for you. The other way the wetland works for you is if it's a subsurface wetland, and I'm going to use cattails for example, okay? Cattails have a root system that will go about 2 feet, maybe even 2.5 feet down into the ground. So what you do is you actually have a media, typically probably inch to inch and a half aggregate, and you plant these wetland plants predominantly like cattails because they got a long root system. So what the water does, it'll flow through that media or gravel or clean stone, and because you've got that long root down, going way down into the bottom of that media, you don't see the freezing there because that's where you put the plants are putting air into the bottom, and that's where the bacterial actions taking place, which they'll generate some heat. So one thing when you do that, to even give yourself a little more insulation, you actually want to raise that water up, and you let it form a layer of ice on top, so it even further insulate what's happening down in that lower media. And I tell you, if you ever, good example to see one of these, if the owners don't care if you're out at like Revels, if you drive by Revels, you'll see basically what I'm talking about right there, right along the road. Very similar system on a much smaller scale than what you would see here.
Is the city currently incurring the cost of hauling the leachate away?
LCAP's incurring that cost.
Does the city incur the cost of treating it, I guess, at its water plant or its sewer plant?
They should be billing LCAP for that. That's correct. I don't know, and I do not know what that fee is. That's probably one of the numbers I probably should have had for tonight's meeting, but I do not know. But I can get that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, thank you, Mr. Riggleman.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we will move down to our committee reports. Counselor Chenoweth.
Personnel Committee, I don't have a report because we have not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 12th at noon.
May 12th.
May 12th. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Skipping way ahead there.
yeah, I skipped a few months there, sorry.
Thank you. Counselor Guy. No report. Counselor Hinchman.
Yes, Finance met last Monday, and we went over the general fund budget revisions, and we went over the Seneca Mall parking lot, and we discussed the purchase of a sanitation truck. We went over the fire department's budget for 2023. We went over the budget for landfill, budget for 2023, and we went over the sanitation's budget for 2023. And we reviewed and went over the 2023 property general liability insurance bids, all of which we'll be seeing most of tonight.
Thank you. Counselor Friddle.
No report.
Counselor Higgins.
I have no report.
Counselor Kwanzaa.
Okay. Municipal properties will be on May the 18th this month. A couple of things just to let you all know that the ad hoc committee for the boards and commission with a total of 16 different boards or commissions were reviewed by the ad hoc committee, and we have completed our task. And we reviewed all the city code parts of each of those boards or commissions. And if you have any specific questions or concerns about those, you can address that with Jessica. She kept all the notes for that. But the ad hoc committee is now dissolved, and I guess if we need it again in the future, we'll pick it back up. The only other thing I have is tree board committee. We met the other night, and what we decided was that we had a count of over 100 trees planted from February 1st to May. So we've been busy, and that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Vest.
No report.
And Counselor Parker.
No report this evening. Public safety will meet next Monday, 10 a.m. in this room.
Okay, thank you. We will move down to our staff reports. Mr. Sampson.
Good evening, council. So the smell of asphalt, fresh asphalt's in the air, unfortunately. As you can tell, it's been getting laid, fresh asphalt's been getting laid through the city, starting this week. We got very short notice last Friday that they was gonna start as of Monday. So we didn't really get a lot of time to get the notice out to citizens and whatnot, and we've got a lot of questions about that. Next year, we will try to do a better job with West Virginia Paving on getting notice out to the citizens and notifying them a lot better than what we did this year. I didn't realize that it's about a 3-month process getting prepped for these 2 weeks of paving. Sean and his crew starts going out in January, starts looking at streets that possibly needs paved from the winter, and then they start adding it to a list. And then as that month goes on, they start prioritizing these streets. When we start looking at budgets, then they'll reevaluate each month after that to see how bad it got after the winterization of the streets kind of took place. After that, we kind of all put our heads together, getting as far as water, sewer, other PSDs that we kind of touch their streets so that their utilities run under our streets, and we see if they're going to end up tearing up the road. We take those streets off the list just because we don't want to put fresh pavement down on something that's going to get tore up. So a lot of people ask, you know, why is my street not getting paved this year? Because it's horrible looking. Well, it's getting ready to get tore up more than likely. Mountaineer Gas is doing a lot of tearing up this summer. They're doing a lot of projects, so that's one of the big reasons, but, which is good. They're replacing a lot of their line, so that's a positive thing. We just can't put asphalt down on top of those yet. So hopefully the next year, Sean and I are really working on getting a good rotation of these streets, getting them paved on a possibly 3 to 5 year rotation. Probably depending on priority on how busy these streets are, but I think he already does that. He does a really good job by himself by doing that already. So I'm kind of blessed to have him on my team and his crew. So other than that, I do want to thank Sutton he's been really hammering it out to the public about what streets are coming up in the days as far as the milling, what's going to be blocked off, or this congestion is going to be happening. So kudos to him for that, and honestly, we couldn't make it happen without him, so I really appreciate Sutton for that. So the sanitation supervisor position has been filled. Tim Harper from wastewater collection has accepted the position. Tim's been with the city for 18 years, and he is the Beverly Fire Chief. Really good guy. We interviewed seven candidates, all good candidates, some in, some outside of the organization. Tim stood out. He did well interviewing. All of them did really well interviewing, but Tim really stood out and impressed me the most. It was more of a team effort. It was myself, Melody, and Shannon. We had some other people evaluating as well. That's something you'll find out that I don't ever tend to make a one-sided decision. I usually bring a team together and talk about it, and then we all talk about it afterwards. So that's about the way I usually go about doing things. But I'm excited. I've talked to the sanitation guys, and they're all really excited to see Tim get on board. We're looking at him coming on board about the 23rd of May, so I'll keep you updated on that. Other than that, Tammy from the Del Monte, she's working on the hanging baskets now for downtown. She's got those hanging out in the Phil Gaynor fenced-in lot. She actually built an apparatus out there that they're getting natural water and sunlight versus her taking it in and out of the Phil Gaynor Center every day. So we kind of worked with her on that. So they're looking really good. So hopefully this year they'll look a lot healthier. So other than that, that's all I have for tonight. Any questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And I just want to follow up on something that Josh mentioned about the notification for those that are here, or those that might be watching the live stream, that as quickly as possible, they'll be out on all of our media platforms. You know, we have the Facebook page, we have a website, we have some direct email links. So just try to, if you're not accessing those already, feel free to go to the website. There'll be information there as to how to do that, or you can contact City Hall and we'll help you do that as well. All right, Chief Bennett.
Good evening. In April, Elkins Police Department responded to 480 calls for service that generated 32 cases, resulting in 19 arrests and 32 citations issued. Weather's getting better, call numbers are coming up, we're seeing more people out on the roads later at night, as per usual, and we'll expect it over the next few months to just get busier and busier. Don't really have too much more going on. I know I reported to you that we had found a way through the Governor's Highway Safety to secure computers for our cruisers. On Monday, $30,000 worth of equipment showed up. Our printers, licensed scanners, everything but the computers themselves showed up Monday. And I received a phone call today that our 15 computer systems will be here Monday. So we'll have all of that. We'll spend next week getting those installed and be up and running in our cruisers, which makes all of us very happy. Next week we have firearms qualifications going on every department weapon system, and now I'll have a lot better idea of what's going on around me after the presentation on the landfill while we're doing it. But other than that, I don't have anything, but I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions.
you. Ms. Judy?
Good evening. Does anybody have any questions regarding the two reports that were in the packet? For the month of April, we had a really good month for revenues. So far for the 10 months, we have received 105% of our budgeted revenues. So that's good. But everywhere, every other fund is exceeding right now. We're not in the red, with the water fund being the closest to even right now. And then we received our final quarterly rebate for our P cards in the amount of $2,996.23. The next council meeting, I'll have a summary of what we've received historically and in this fiscal year from the P card rebates. The annual report for the ARPA funds was filed as required by the U.S. Department of Treasury. The Treasurer's Office is currently working on the fiscal year 2023 business licenses. That'll be mailed out within the next couple weeks. The office is also working on the water and sewer rate studies with the chief operators of water and sewer, as well as the staff at Michael Griffith and Associates. And I heard yesterday from Anthony Woods with the State Auditor's Office on where we were with the Social Security for the police and fire civil service employees. They anticipate that happening midsummer. They've had several other cities show interest in that, and the state is working on getting the final documentation approved. And then once that is it, I'll be meeting or contacting both of the chiefs, try to set up several dates for training for the auditor's office and or the Social Security Administration to come in and do training. So every officer and firefighter knows what they're voting on. It's a one-time and done. So they need to know if they don't vote for it, what the long-term effects may be, and if they vote for it, what it will be. So that's kind of what we're working on right now. Anybody have any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Chief Himes?
Good evening, everyone. Month of April, we responded to 229 incidents. One building fire, a couple food on the stoves. We actually had an aircraft in distress last Friday that landed without incident, having some engine problems apparently. That brings us to 169 for the year. Last Tuesday, I believe, we received our ISO evaluation back. So good news, bad news. Good news, our score improved. Good news, we stayed in the same protection class that we were in. Our score did not improve enough, the bad news, to go to the next class. So I have been on the phone with underwriting and the community hazard mitigation specialists about clarifications on what the numbers mean and getting answers to my questions. I have a presentation, a more detailed presentation that I want to do for you at a later date because this thing doesn't go truly in effect until August 1. And lastly, over the weekend, I'd like for everybody to keep the Forbush family and from Braxton County in their prayers. I was contacted by their OEM director Tuesday. I've been on the wrong day all week, so. Tuesday, I was contacted by their OEM director, and we are working with another fire department in the county, and we're gonna be sending coverage crews down there Monday and Tuesday to cover their stations, to assist in covering their stations for the visitation and the funeral. So we'll have some guys out of town, but the station, I mean, we'll still be at full staff here, and guys are voluntarily taking time off from their jobs to go and do what it is that we do. So, does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I just have one quick announcement as clerk. The Riverfront Task Force Riverfront Development Project is moving along, as Ann and Stacy mentioned earlier. We had the public meetings, which several of you were able to attend. We had a stakeholder meeting and then a public meeting, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. And then today, I had a follow-up with GAI consultants, just to sort of capture all the information that they gathered and review it. We're expecting them to have a draft conceptual design ready probably by the end of this month, and then hopefully to be finalized in June. So I'll keep you all updated on that, unless you have any other questions about that or anything else. All right, I'll invite our Chief Water Operator, Wes Lambert, up for his report.
How are you all doing this evening?
Good.
So, we've been enjoying the weather change. For the last couple of weeks, we've been working on trying to catch up with all the yard work, trying to catch up with the list of water taps that needed installed, but we just couldn't find the decent weather to do it in the winter. We've also been trying to do a little bit of spring cleaning around the shops, the plant and the distribution shop. I believe we're going to start getting pretty busy as the summer starts to transition. On May 23rd, the week of May 23rd, we're going to start our biannual flushing for the spring. We're going to work with Sutton and Tracy and utility billing to get the word out. Trying to work right now and coordinate with Tracy's department to use a dial system to give an advance call to every one of our customers and try to let them know what's coming. And then we're going to work with Sutton to put out a day-by-day briefing on what streets we're going to be on and try to warn the customers in as advance notice as possible. I want to give a shout out to Melody Price and the Randolph County Make It Shine organization. They done a river cleanup on April 30th, and they contacted Josh and I about what we could do possibly to lower the river levels so they could get in our section of river that runs through the city. And they did an excellent job. They collected several bags of trash, tires, buggies, all kinds of stuff. And Josh worked with a couple of his departments to haul the trash away. It was a huge success. Groups like that really make a huge difference for the city, and it's much appreciated. On May the 10th, Josh and I are going to be out at the flood control meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers for the periodic inspection. The inspection's supposed to last one full day for us, and then they're going to have 2 days of meeting and going over their paperwork. So we should have a little bit more details for you on what they found the next council meeting, I would assume. And then we had a diesel spill. That's an interesting topic. On April 22nd, we got a phone call. Matter of fact, Sutton got an email first about a concerned citizen seeing a sheen of oil on top of the river. That's actually part of our intake for the water system. And so I sent some operators out to investigate, and sure enough, there was a sheen on the water. It was on the opposite side of the river from our intake. At that point, we contacted the DEP and the West Virginia DHHR and got them up to speed on what was going on. The DEP actually sent an officer out with us, an inspector, and we were able to trace that back to a storm drain on 15th Street. And it looked like maybe somebody had dumped 5 gallons worth of diesel fuel in that storm drain. I would like to take the opportunity to ask the citizens to please dispose of the diesel, any type of fuel, any type of oil, dispose of that correctly. Contact the Solid Waste Authority, contact the DEP, ask somebody how to dispose of that, because it's not an option to dump that into the storm drains. That goes directly into the drinking water intake, and not only that, it affects the wildlife and the fish. It's not a good place to dump that used oil or diesel. So if we work together, we can take care of our environment. So, but anyway, we were lucky on that one. It was a small spill, so nothing got into our water system, but it could have been a lot worse. So that's all I have for this time. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Ms. Roberts, do you have anything this evening?
Just two things real briefly. Thank you, Jessica. First of all, to let you know that I had a very productive conversation with Mr. Rolson. He is the head of the Land Division in the State Auditor's Office with regard to this Senate Bill 552 that was passed this year that is changing the sales of delinquent properties with delinquent taxes on them, and the funding that's going to be made available. They are just getting started on this. It's a big process for them. It's a lot of changes, but it was very productive, and I made some contacts with other people in his office that I think will be helpful going forward. And one other thing, if you notice on the building permits that were issued, there is a permit for the building of a new house on the property on River Street, 5 River Street, where the fire occurred last year. I just want to remind all of you that council made a really good decision to work with Woodlands in regard to that. There's going to be a new home there, and it was a good team effort between both Woodlands and the city. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving down on our agenda, we have the approval of the vendor invoice payments for the period of April 18th to the 29th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And on to new business. You have ordinance 298, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Elkins, West Virginia, amending and supplementing City Code Chapter 71, stopping, standing, and parking concerning parking in alleys. This is the second and final reading.
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have Resolution 1519, authorizing the appointment of S. Severino to the Elkins Parks and Recreation Commission.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1520, authorizing the advertisement of a request for qualifications for downtown streetscape design and designating funding.
Madam Chair, I would move the approval of Resolution 1521.
Thank you. Or 20, did you?
20, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
20.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1521, General Fund Budget Revisions number 13 through number 24 for fiscal year 2022.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1522, approval of budget revision for 2022-001-05 for fiscal year 2022.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? And this requires a roll call vote, so I'll ask Rachel to call roll for us.
Counselor Fiddle,
Yes.
Counselor Guy. Yes. Counselor Vest,
Yes.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Yes.
Counselor Lowther, absent. Counselor Parker,
Yes.
Counselor Bross Ferganera, absent. Counselor Kwanzo,
Yes.
Counselor Hinchman,
Yes.
Counselor Higgins.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Resolution 1523, approval of sanitation fund budget revision number 2 for fiscal year 2022.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1524, approval of fire department fund budget for fiscal year 2023.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1525, approval of landfill fund budget for fiscal year 2023.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1526, approval of sanitation fund budget for fiscal year 2023.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1527, accepting bid from and authorizing execution of agreement with Assured Partners of West Virginia LLC for general liability insurance.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments?
I'll just say I'll recuse myself from the vote on this, as I did in the Finance Committee meeting, because our law firm, or the law firm I work for, does work for West Virginia Corp., who's one of the entities that submitted a bid for insurance.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1528, accepting conditions of West Virginia First Memorandum of Understanding between the State of West Virginia and the City of Elkins and the Endo settlement terms and authorizing execution thereof.
So moved.
Question, do we have any idea how much money that'll be?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the memo, and if you want any discussion, I sent to council and to several other members of the administration what the entire agreement, which actually shows the percentage this city would get, depending on whether Huntington and Cabell County are included, and then also a calculation without it. But if you look at the memo of the entire $26 million settlement, this is just one settlement with one company. There'll be others, and this will all be handled in the same manner with the lawsuits that the state filed, not any of the other entities. But what's been allocated for the cities out of the 26 million, thank you, find Mike help me, the total amount for what they call local governments, it's cities and counties, the entire amount is 24.5% of 26 million, which calculated is $5,860,400. And the charts that are included in the 162-page document that I attached to the memo, if you look in there, there's a chart that shows exactly the calculation based on the full amount that the city of Elkins would get, and the county of Randolph, and the city of Kingwood, and everybody else that would be affected by it. I just don't have the entire thing in front of me. But this is just, so what I want you to know is, it's one settlement with one company. So as additional settlements, and if you have been listening to the news, there's a trial currently going on in Kanawha County. It's in the mass litigation, court. But in any event, during the course of that trial, a settlement with Johnson & Johnson has occurred. I don't know the amount of that, but eventually that money would go into this fund. And any judgments that come out of this trial, either by settlement or by finding of the court, will also go into that. So as these cases wind their way through, this will be deposited in this fund. If you choose not to accept the memorandum of understanding and be a participant, and also agree to release any possible claims the city would have against the company Endo and Par Pharmaceuticals, you'll never have any access to the funds at all. That's a choice you can make. This city did not participate in any of the litigation brought by counties and or cities. There was a choice made by council I don't know how many years ago, the council was approached by, I believe, two different attorneys in private practice that were gathering local governments to participate in these suits. This city decided not to. So if you're going to receive any funds as a result of any of this opioid litigation, is what they're calling it, your only opportunity will be through agreeing to the MOU that's been proposed by the Attorney General's office, and also agreeing to release any claims, even though you'd never filed suit. This is also going to foreclose any claims you would ever file against Endo, I forget the actual name of it, but the company called Endo, and then the Par Pharmaceuticals. That's this $26 million settlement. So if, and as I pointed out in the memo, this is the sort of thing that the task force that the mayor's put together, exactly the kind of funding they would be looking for with regard to everything from recovery to assisting law enforcement. There's a whole myriad of things that this can be used for. And so that's what this is about. You either say, yes, we'd like to participate and make these funds available to the city, or you can choose not to.
Other than releasing claims that we've never brought or probably never will bring, is there any downside to entering into the memorandum?
I can't think of any, frankly. You know, I've reviewed the documents that I sent to you all. I've spoken to two different assistant attorney generals, the two persons that are named at the end of the letter from the attorney general, to make sure my understanding of this was clear. You are a non-litigating, participating local government if you agree to this, which means the funds that are allocated under this settlement with these numbers, you will be, they'll be available at some point in time to the city. There'll be an application process. As you can see, there's certain criteria for what the funds can be used for. There's going to be a nonprofit foundation set up. You are one of the, there are 6 different regions. The county of Randolph is in Region 4. There's going to be representatives from each of the region on this 11-member board. It's all kind of spelled out in the MOU. But the point of all of it, when you come right down to it, if the city wants to be able to participate in any funds that are a result of a settlement or a judgment by a court with regard to the opioid litigation, this will be your one and only opportunity.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
I have one comment, if I may. The second company that reached a settlement with the state about 2 weeks ago was for $99 million. So it's bringing the total to 125 already, with the expectation that the other 3 pharmaceutical companies that are involved in the lawsuit are going to settle. The other part of it is the way this is broken down by percentages. The 25% goes to the political subdivisions, as Ms. Roberts explained. 70% more of that goes toward the West Virginia First program, which those funds will also become available in some capacity down the road for political subdivisions to apply for, to use toward these anti-opioid programs. So it's not just the initial 25% that people are going to be getting. There's going to be more funds out of that down the road as well.
And there's a 3% that's being held back with regard to the administration of this nonprofit that will be created with the 11-member board. If after a certain period of time, all of those funds aren't expended, that other 3% will be thrown back into the pot. So I don't see any downside to participating in this. You haven't filed a claim. My guess is the city is probably not going to ever think about doing that. It was a decision that was made, and at this point, I'm not sure where you'd fit into. I mean, there's litigation in Ohio that the state of West Virginia is part of because it's in federal court. There was the case that was tried in federal court in front of Judge Faber that the city of Huntington was the main plaintiff in. We're not part of that suit. That case is not yet decided. So this has to do with any case that the state of West Virginia has brought on behalf of the state and all of its constituents. And as the chief just pointed out, the J&J settlement, there are 3 other defendants in that ongoing litigation. It is a trial to the court. Judge Swope will make a decision at some point in time. Either the case will get settled before that by some of these defendants, as it did with J&J, or he'll make a decision at some point in time. So whatever funds come, this is your way to have the city be involved and avail themselves of these funds.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 1528. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1529, authorizing Elkins landfill leachate treatment project.
So moved.
Any discussion or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And finally, just a couple comments as the acting mayor this evening. I want to congratulate the Elkins tennis team, who just went through the regional competition these last few days. And they have one player, Aaron Elliott, who is moving on to the States next week. And also that, just to make sure everybody's aware, that City Hall will be closed next Tuesday, May the 10th, for the primary election. And if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.